What are the aging processes, and do we actually have to stop them? And if we do, how do we do that? First of all, we have to understand that aging processes consist of two parts. The first part is biological aging, and the second part is psychological aging. So the question how to stop the biological aging would actually mostly lie in the psychological area. Everybody knows the effect of placebo as an example of the way how certainties and beliefs affect the biological age and biological condition of the body. So we can refer to the same process, the same mechanism, and see how the psychological processes will change the condition of the body and make the body slow down in aging, or even have this process of aging at all. There are two major ways to fight aging processes or senility. The first way would be the easiest one. That would be to distinguish the senile displays, habits, the way you talk, the way you run or move or anything, and try to remove them one by one. This is the easiest, and I will tell why later. The second one is to remove the psychological part of aging. So the psychological state or the pile of perceptions which make you actually feel like you're old, the certainties. It's intuitively understandable for pretty much every person. If somebody you're looking at behaves like older person or younger person, you can see all of those displays which you see around you on the streets or in the movies. Older person would often have a squeaky voice, or they would move slower, they would shuffle their feet on the ground, or sometimes they have elbows pressed closer to the body and hands crunched, which looks something like that. They have awkward face expression and sometimes other awkward or not confident displays. So even having a really small experience in distinguishing senile displays, you can still intuitively compare and understand, and then try to break it down and see why exactly one person looks like old and another looks like young. There is one reason why this eliminating of senile external displays is easier than internal psychological displays. Of course, talking about elimination, you should find somebody who is pretty good at it and who can tell you if this expression is senile or not, if this movement is senile or not. It's better to have somebody like that by your side who is capable of observation and willing to give you the ideas and advices. So the only thing which really matters in this case is your wish to change something. Because if you imagine an older person who, for example, sits somewhere and screams to a kid in a squeaky voice, "Come here, you little rascal." And then you come up to this person and say, "Hey buddy, you're so old and you have so many senile displays. Do you want my help to remove them?" Of course you will be told to go and fuck yourself. It's very rare that you can find a person with lots of senile displays who wants to really remove them, who wants to really make that work. But whatever, let's imagine you already have that wish and you already find somebody who can help you. So removing them one by one will influence immensely on your psychological state. Even if you do the same movement using 3-4 senile displays, and you do the same movement without making all those senile displays, you'll see a huge difference in your state, in the level of your energy. Even your wishes might change. I've done that experiment myself when I put on clothes, really long, uncomfortable clothes, and it was very dark and very baggy, because old people usually tend to wear something baggy or unattractive. because they don't want to attract any attention. They don't want to feel like they're attractive to anybody anymore. They don't have that wish. And I put on that clothes and took some really inconvenient bag and was just shuffling my feet and making all those moves, like walking like that. And when I was talking to somebody, I would use the squeaky voice and I would be really awkward, like I shouldn't even exist, like some old people do. And the way I felt was actually horrible. The difference was so big. I felt like I really wanted to be very unnoticeable. I wanted to apologize to everybody. I felt like I cannot just start and run somewhere, and so on. Of course, there are many people of age like 60 or 70 who live active life, but that would rather be an exception rather than something normal, but it should be normal. Talking about the displays of old people, one very important aspect would be not to try to make every action in the most efficient way. Not to try to fill your bag with only the things you really need. You keep forgetting something, you keep just mixing all the things, you keep putting in your bag some things which you might need sometime, but you actually never need them. And your life is full of those things and you never take care of whether they're done efficiently or not. I would say it can happen to everybody, and it does, but what's important is whether you want to change it or not, whether you think of it as of something which really affects your life or not. That is definitely a senile display. The hunting, the looking for those displays can be a very interesting task itself, and it can make the life so much richer in general. You shouldn't be trying to remove all of them at once. It's really hard, it's almost impossible. It's like in sports, you cannot do 5 things at a time, you can only watch 1 or 2 things. So take one thing, for example, let's say a habit of using incorrect words. I want to say a plate and I say, oh, that thingy. I want to say computer and I say this machine, this device. Like forgetting words and mixing words and using of incorrect words is also a display of aging. And you just stick to this habit, to changing this habit. You better if you mark it in your notebook how many you caught before doing them, how many you actually done but noticed, and then you can see the changes day by day. Maybe changing the first habit, even if it's a harder one like this one, will take a month. But does it really matter if, first of all, you have a lot of time ahead? Secondly, the more you do that, the more habit you have to change those things and distinguish them and catch them before they happen. And third, what else? What's more interesting than making your life longer, making yourself less bound to aging processes, making yourself just having a better life? There is nothing more important than that. The way somebody treats you at work, no. The way, if you win your lottery or not, no. That's the most important, changing your state, changing your appearance, changing your love for life. The mental displays are harder to distinguish. There are a few reasons for that, and first of all is if in the case of external displays you can still intuitively see them somehow and tell the difference, for the mental it's so much harder because you're so used to them and you're so used to them around you that it's really hard to say, okay, this is the way they hold hands, this is the way they talk, this is the voice they are using. There is no such thing in mental displays. And that's the first obstacle, hardship with distinguishing them. The second is that the mental state of aging is actually a full state. It doesn't only consist of few perceptions, but there are also wishes, there are some beliefs, there are certainties. It's a whole conglomeration of things, of different kinds of mental movements and displays. And without having the experience of distinguishing them and breaking them into details, it's really hard to actually try and get rid of them. Like, what do you do if there is a task in front of you to get rid of senility? You don't know what to do. There is nothing you can do about it. You just think, okay, I have to get rid of that, and the next day you find yourself desperate because you don't know what to do, and you feel like you've tried and you failed. The third difficulty is that it's harder to want to get rid of them, because your ego won't allow you to want to change yourself. You will be afraid to lose your personality, the way you behave, the way you treat your friends. For example, if you are, say, 40 or 50 years old, and all your surrounding consists mostly of people of the same age, or even older people, like, say, your relatives, and you're so used to them, and you are just around them, and you used to sit together with them on the bench and talk about how hard it is nowadays and how good it was 30 years ago, and suddenly you want to change all that, and suddenly you will start looking at your surroundings, at your circle in a different way. You will actually realize that those people are getting old, and you kind of getting older together with them. And you don't want that. You will start to be more aloof to them. You'll start to detach. You'll start to have way different life. And yeah, it can break a lot of things around you. It can break your circles. It can make you further from the people you are used to be together and close. That's hard, and that's something you have to think about. Something you have to be ready for. So what are the mental displays we're talking about? The first and the major thing is that old people do not have goals anymore. They just stop having goals for themselves. The only goals they would have would be connected with other people. Like, if I'm 60 years old, I would think, oh, okay, my goal is to put my kids in a good school, or put my grandkids in a good kindergarten, or something like that. So my life would stop being my life, and I will start to put a lot of attention into other people's life. I don't plan to learn a science, I don't plan to learn a new language, I don't plan to learn how to start boxing or something like that. If I'm 60, I don't have much time left, and why would I learn physics at all? For example, to start learning physics, I should have started at 12 or 15 years old, and then go to university or college, or then go to work in that area and start doing some research work, let's say, and by 40 I will reach the peak of my career. By 50, 55 I'll start just slowly going down, and that's how it's going to work. But I'm 60. Do I really have to open the physics book and start from the chapter what is electricity and what is, like, mechanics or something like that? How does the body move? But what happens in reality? First of all, not so many people are really enjoying what they do at universities and at work. Unfortunately, that's true. Many of them just do something, like going through the motions, doing some routine, and that's why by 40 they would reach the peak of career, and then they would go down. There are some scientists which are really attached and really passionate about what they do, but again, there are exceptions. Most of the people would just do their routine. And why would you, at 50, why wouldn't you be able to, read the basics for 10 years, and by 60 you will have the understanding of physics? And as you don't have that pressure of time or other people's opinion or the exams coming close, without that pressure you will be doing everything with pleasure, and you will enjoy what you do, and that will make you learn everything so much deeper than the people at the universities. So if by 60 you have that deeper understanding, what stops you from going further? And it's not just the book you read for 10 years, it's also an interest which grows. It also catches the interest from close areas, like you might find an interest in chemistry or biology or anything which is related to physics, mathematics. Again, you're starting to be surrounded by people of the same interests. The people of those who, including the people of 15 or 20 years old who are passionate about physics. And that only thing also makes you feel younger, because you're not surrounded by your grandparents anymore. You don't sit in the cottage with them. You're full of life. You just learn things. You find new interesting things. You learn something new every day. And when do you get old? To learn that physics and to have enough energy, you might want to go to the gym and just start to learn how to box. Or you can start running in the mornings and your interests just grow as a snowball. And again, when do you have time to get old? You don't anymore. The thing I mentioned about being around younger people who are passionate about what they do, or they just want to develop, they just don't want to get older, is the third aspect of not getting old yourself. If you are surrounded by older people, you also adopt the older displays so much easier. If you are surrounded on the other side by younger people, you adopt the habits of younger people and you start to look like somebody who is younger. You want to be younger. You not only you adopt the external displays, but also you adopt the mental displays. A love of life, a wish to develop, a wish to do something, to be active, not to just sit and wait when the decrepitude comes. For that, you can even go to take some tourism actions, go somewhere with a tent or just a bicycle ride or adventure, anything, but just don't be surrounded by old people. Don't adopt the older people displays and certainties and beliefs. It will make you older in a second. As I already said, the major problem is that nobody wants to eliminate and distinguish those displays. It's really hard to make yourself do that if you already reached some age and you think that you're so dignified and sedate and you're free to do anything you want, and you choose to just get old because that's inevitable. There is a fourth aspect, and it's really important too, because that's one of the main obstacles why you don't want to change your aging habits. When people get older, they think that the aging is some sign of being dignified, like being sedate, being more mature. So even kids, when they grow up, they try to adopt some displays and habits of their parents or even grandparents, to try to talk the way their grandparents do, just because they think that it will make them closer to some kind of freedom. Very rarely kids nowadays, in pretty much any country, well, maybe except for some undeveloped countries where they just run by themselves, those kids are being made to follow some schedule, some routine, and they barely have some time to just be themselves. So these mechanisms which makes them try to look older, it kind of makes men think that they're closer to the time when they will have more ability to decide what they do themselves, when they're not so strictly attached to the routine, to schedules and so on. And people grew older and older, and when they imagine the old age and the way they live, they would always imagine something really quiet, really something like a house near the river where they can sit and maybe just listen to the birds, and there is barely anything active. I barely heard from people that they imagined that they would just be climbing the mountains or just scuba diving or doing a lot of different kinds of activities. That's their way of trying to get rid of those old responsibilities and duties they've been having through all the life. And unfortunately, the power of that, the pressure of those responsibilities is so high that people start to drag themselves to that aging process much faster than they would have if they were more free during the lifetime. That is all, like, for aspects of trying to get rid of senile displays. And as I said, you should start from the easiest one. Just find something really easy. You have a squeaky voice? Okay. 10 times a day, ask yourself, do I have a squeaky voice right now? And just follow this and just remove this habit first. And then find another one, remove it then. And it will be really good if you add some mental processes as well. Read a paragraph of genetics or go for a run for 5 minutes. And that complex of things altogether will influence your biological processes immensely too. Because as I mentioned, there are many examples already how this placebo works on your body. You can almost like change your temperature with the power of your thought. You can change the length of your telomeres. You can do so many things just forcing your mind, like using the certainties you have about your body, about your head, about your biological age to change it. So use it. Just stop the process right now. And even if you're 15 years old, even if you're 25 years old, it doesn't mean you don't have those displays. Most probably you already do. And it's much better to catch all those displays earlier, as well as any other disease, and start the treatment immediately.